All right, well, good morning. It is Friday, September 20th at approximately 7:30 a.m. and we are here for our Student Achievement Committee meeting. Marie, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks. Good morning, everybody. We usually have good evenings, so in there. I'm just trying to position some of our work in these next couple months because we have some major changes on some of the state assessment stuff, so that we can spend appropriate levels of time on kind of what's out there. So thank you for meeting today. So the first thing we're going to do is just kind of give you an update on the continuous improvement work of the district. I might remind our board members a little bit. We started kind of having district goals in the 22-23 school year, like in a kind of more deep, meaningful way, which was aligned to our strategic plan that was in place. And then each of our buildings had their own SIP goals, so we call them like DIP and SIP, improvement and innovation goals. But I still always liked the word innovation, honestly, because I still think we can do things and learn more and kind of spread our own way of seeing things. So we've done that the last couple years, and I just wanted to kind of update now that the strategic plan's done, kind of how the administration feels continuous improvement should go forward, and then you guys can maybe give us feedback and tell us a little bit too, kind of what you're thinking along that. But we have our pillars now in our strategic plan, the goal, their strategic objectives, we have the key performance indicators, and then our action plan focus areas, and then our actual action plan. And that was all done, all of those main components, except the actual annual action plan by the strategic plan. I know they did kind of see some drafts of our work and update some of that. Is there anything, either, I know Ron, you were also part of that process, or Rebecca, of yours, of kind of how the committee kind of saw the strategic planning and action plan?
Yeah, I guess they obviously set kind of the pillars and the strategic objectives, but it was very clear that from there it is up to the administration then to take the plan and develop it, do the heavy lifting. For this first year, they actually gave us a lot of feedback on what it was that they would like to see the first year. Now, we did take that into account. It is linked here, but ultimately the board will be the public will be seeing it publicly for the first time, the administrative recommendations moving forward, much of which is from the community. And there were some things that we added or took out just because of either capacity or some of the things that were already in the works too as well. But a lot of feedback from the strategic planning committee team. Our administrative team has spent significant time reviewing that, crunching that, and we feel we've got a really good action plan moving forward for this upcoming year. The other piece that our administration continues to work on is kind of that 5-year look as well. This is this year's work, what's next year's work, and ultimately we will continue to lay that out. That more than likely won't be ready for September. We've been busy doing other things, getting ready, but that is really the next key work, is obviously once we get grounded in on this year's work, and then we're kind of going to give a projected work for the next 5 years, so everybody can kind of see where we're going. And if there was one of those things you're just like, well, what about this? There it is, hopefully. So
when do you anticipate for
October.
We're kind of calling it like a 5-year forecast that I'm sure will change, just kind of as things are happening around us too, government policies, right?
Exactly.
Like just kind of some rough things. It also really does help significantly with budgeting, like for some of the more heavy lifts that we might have. So in the past, we would have 2 days in the summer with our building leadership teams and the principals to kind of write their SIP goals. So this is new and different because those goals aren't something they're helping to write on their level anymore. So we did still have a meeting in August, and I just kind of linked the agenda here, kind of spending time and getting to know the strategic plan. Because of course we had a small representative, we knew we were doing some back to school work, but our leadership teams are really supposed to help be the guiding coalition at trying to help that happen in schools. So we try to have them really ready. And this was on the tail actually of really nice, the administrative team and myself and some of our instructional specialists went to a professional learning conference in Madison. It was actually very nice and close this year. Because travel can get very expensive and it's usually not like around us.
Local.
So, and we were able to use that to plan some of the activities and things that we wanted to walk through. So we did a lot of strategic plan, we overviewed it, we had them do activities that kind of talked about like, what would the headline be if we met all of these things? Would that look like for us? And they kind of had some headlines to what they would like it in their building. We talked about, in the past, they kind of worked on non-negotiables about, and that was a little bit more of, what we agreed we would be seeing in the classroom and those type of things, and to kind of revisit that now with the strategic plan and with new leadership. Are these still relevant? Would these still help us guide the work? And then we kind of really did a lot of activities of, it's the strategic plan put kind of a house image together for our strategic work. And when we were at the Professional Learning Community Conference, they put their professional learning communities in a house as the mechanism of how we can get the work done through being strong-led professional learning communities. So we kind of went with some graphics of how can we help people understand the houses. We had a lot of joking about that because Ron likes to say sometimes I take care of one side of the Merton house and he takes the other. I don't know if he's ever shared that with the board, but we got a lot of house imagery here.
Yeah.
So they spent time helping us kind of do that, how we can work with our board about, with our teacher teams about that. And then they review that blueprints and kind of start to work about how those beginning of the year in-service days and some of their time throughout this that they have on Wednesday mornings help meet the strategic planning work. So that's kind of how that day went. It looked different. I collect feedback on that as well. I don't know, I probably should make myself a note actually to include that next year in the update, because we always ask plans, but we always do get really positive feedback from staff. I think they just like really talking about their own school and how that can be relevant to their work.
Maria, could you give me some examples of non-negotiables?
I don't, let me see if I can link some of them.
They're linked in.
I meant if I still have access.
Oh,
Yeah, it's in, I opened it.
What?
I would just open it up.
Oh, you did, it did
Yeah.
have them? Yeah, like, I'll just look at the intermediates.
Sometimes I
Yeah.
get on the Wi-Fi, sometimes I can't.
Yeah,
Oh,
that
I
is
was
very
wrong,
true.
it kicks me off.
So they have like, will learn and perform their best and have a sense of belonging in their environment. Will be prepared for success outside of Merton. And all students will grow and learn in order to meet individual achievement needs through guaranteeing viable curriculum.
Do those change very often?
Well,
Like
that
some of
was
the
kind of
standards you've been
that
working
was
on?
kind of like a new thing of kind of talking
Oh,
about
okay.
negotiables, not this year, but in some of our past work. Because if you remember kind of up on, and these were developed, and then, we had Kristen for a little bit of a short time, they were working through some revisions, so we just wanted to also give Bob like a conversation point with them, about how it was, how they are gonna move forward. So, really kind of just small things to say like, these are what we all can kind of agree on, about how we want our school to look like.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, so, and then what we do have is, a copy of the strategic action plan. I, forgot, is this going to the full board?
yeah, going to
Yes.
the board, yeah,
So,
yeah, and the board has seen this data,
Yeah,
I put that in my last update for a week.
of course, for student achievement, we are heavily focused, our community work on is on our student experience piece with that. And so, a chunk of my work on this with the staff and with the admin team, and what I realized, I'm just gonna be upfront about, we have a lot of approved plans. We have the board, for state requirements, we have our approved library plan, remember that, Jim, from May. with their requirements. We have our required education for employment plan. We used to have the DIP plan. And one thing when the strategic committee did their work and said, we're gonna have like a strategic plan, I'm like, we have to make sure that we don't lose any of these other plans. So one thing I will tell you that I tried to do if it was relevant, I tried to put our action steps for the ACP plan, the Academic College Career Plan, the E4E stuff, Education for Employment, and then try to put some of those library pieces from our library plan if they were relevant in the strategic plan that we marked for that year. Just because those are all really important pieces, they shouldn't be something we do in isolation.
Right.
So if you're seeing some stuff and saying like, I think I saw like a action step about that, you're probably right. So I just kind of want to share some of that because it really is hard in systems when you have all these requirements of not losing the work. So I say that because you're going to see things that like Jim Binney's responsible for in here, and you're like, those were pieces from the library plan on some of those cases. So, you know, our biggest heavy lift, I'm not going to go through much of the plan, our biggest heavy lifts will be, no surprise, we're really working on refining some of our math work. We think we can begin to do some you know, really work on additional instructional practices now that the teachers are familiar with Eureka Squared Math and how it's going. Even our internal document said it's rare that you don't get an implementation dip, but we didn't see that last year in our scores, which is amazing, and we actually saw improvement. So, you know, is it that, you know, we're looking for trend data, we can't, but I would say Eureka Squared did not hurt us in any sense of the word. And I know, Justin, you sometimes talk about like, what happens if something isn't working? Something isn't working sometimes for a couple different reasons, right? It can be what we're using in resources, or it could be how we're teaching. And with all of our resources, we try to find something that is a good starting point, and then we have to go kind of hit what we don't like about it. Sure. You know, if something major isn't liked, you do have to be ready to pivot. And but I feel, you know, pretty confident in our process to make sure we don't hit like a thing. But so our math work, we really are going to continue to refine it. And we can work on that more because we're also more familiar with it. And then, of course, K through 5 is well in the implementation, in my view. It's a very heavy lift. If you would have talked to teachers last year at this time of year with Eureka, they would tell you, oh, this is so hard, you know, and we're kind of feeling that. The difference in literacy, though, is it's so much more of their day. Because in my view, that's their writing, that's their grammar, which is also something that's been a little bit of a hard like turn for that because we were not doing some of our traditional language strong. Yeah, phonics, grammar, pronouns, adverbs, prepositional phrases. A couple teachers like, man, I really had to clean off my own grammar, compound sentences, predicates, some of that other stuff, you know, and really a little bit more up on punctuation, you know, those type of things. So, but they're doing great. I would say people are really still, they're positive. Like there's been some things, but you know, they're not like, they know it's going to be hard and they're really good troopers. You know, with Act 20, we have the science of reading training. I am really going to put that on the board's radar continually because it is 30 hours of work that we built into their schedule, you know, to try to get that done. So if they use their time, they will get very close on that. But, you know, it's no one's kind of favorite thing to do. But we really have been trying with their science of reading training to tie it to their My View resources. So, for example, for the first one they did was on Read Aloud and how that develops comprehension. You might hear something like closed reading strategy when you hear something like that. And My View does that closed reading strategy day 2, day 3, day 4 of their plan. So when they learned about it online, we brought them back in our own local professional development and highlighted how that works in the resources. So they understand instructionally why they should be doing it that way. And then teachers are less likely to change it. Like, that's where the science of reading is in our resources. That's one of the reasons. So don't modify that, you know? And we will continue to do that throughout the year. When they hit something, we continue to highlight it and do our own coaching and around that with the
Is
resources.
it if they use their time, they'll get close? Is that in completing the hours? Do they need other time to complete the hours?
You know, it's because it's an online module, you might know. Sometimes it's how quick you get through it. Sometimes people are taking notes. We have the hours allocated if you just keep going. If you don't stop and you do it. I certainly know that we stop. Also, it is free, but we did, like every module comes with a study guide, and I worked with Ron, and we actually took them to the printer this summer. So teachers don't even have to individually do that, we put it all together.
All together.
We bound it, so when they're doing the learning, we can pass it out, and they have everything they need.
But all of that is through our professional development opportunities, so when we say if it's done in 30 hours, we have allocated 4 professional days, basically, 30 hours or 32 hours of professional learning, so it's something that they don't need to do outside of their day. So yes, everything is, and actually we've built around, and you take a look at our plan, it's around their time, like coming up here on the 27th, next week we have a day off, I do believe half day. Almost a half day, 4 hours is devoted towards literacy
Not
development.
this week, not this time, because it's their first time going through a unit, so we put more time in there.
Oh,
But
yeah.
in October, November, they will get almost over a full day's worth of work coming in the next couple months. We have a lot of time with that week before Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah.
For that kind of virtual work where, you know, people can do it online, so we kind of prioritize where we're putting that kind of learning, but.
Is there anything that you would have done in a year where you didn't have this, that those professional learning days would have been used for? Is there something we have to follow because of that, or is it this?
Well, I mean,
in
if we
general,
always
that's why
had
we
more
use it?
time, we'd always be working with more resources. I mean, the thing about literacy is it's heavy. Speaking and listening here, they have a whole week inquiry project, which is very new, which is kind of like synthesizing all of your learning around a real audience for a purpose. You know, we can enrich and enhance those, so that's kind of like what we see in like year 2 of implementation. We're implementing it to fidelity, and then next year we're gonna come in and do some of those refining things that we spoke about.
A couple years ago, this was on our, whether Act 20 was occurring or not, this was our year for literacy adoption. So
Yeah.
we've been planning for this year, so when you say what did we have to put up? Nothing, because this is what it is that we were gonna be implementing regardless of what happened at the state level.
This is from a library plan, I'll just point it out because I think it's important. I'm always looking for high quality, open educational resource materials. And I do it for students, I do it with staff. So like our whole training that I just talked about is free. It's an open educational resource. It was funded by the government, so they made it available for everybody. As much as possible, I do try to, find things that are really good that might be available for free. We use this a lot in our multi-level system of support process. We have a lot of interventions that actually don't have to be purchased, that are available online or for a very small fee to have access to that. So, okay, so that's a chunk of the work. The other thing, the real heavy lift for Action Plan B, honestly, we did procure a data warehouse. I'm very excited about it. Amazing local company. I'm not going to share the story, but they have lots of experience. They built the most popular data house in the market right now called EduClimber. They sold it. They had a 5-year non-compete, and they went and created a better product. I'm really, really impressed with what they have, and so we're really looking at that. It's going to be very cool. That's all I can say. And that's really going to help us with our Act 20 requirements for personal reading plans. There's a parent option that we can even email plans out directly from there, or if we make a revision, or if a parent wants to go in and see how are the kids meeting their goal, all of that's available.
What's it called?
It is called Next Path.
Next path.
And you will go to the website and you'll see nothing. And that's because they're not busy trying to sell it. They have 70 districts on right now, and I know it because we had EduClimber, and a friend of mine who's retiring from our old school district, they wanted to have him work for them with their new product, which is why I learned. He was like, Maria, how did you know? I said, oh.
There's so many value added. Dawn Baumgartner's obviously been working with Maria, and she's like, we could use this for state reporting. I mean, it is, and it all ties together. So we're really excited. Maria's excited about it. Dawn's excited about it.
And you said it came in under budget. Like it was
Oh my
less-
goodness.
Much less than you
$5 a child.
Under $5,000.
expected. What had it been before?
Oh, it
We
would have been
never
like,
had-
we never
oh.
had one. It would have been like close to 10 to 12.
Wow.
Mhm.
Okay, so
Yeah.
significant.
And it's a 3-year lock.
Okay.
Yep, and we do have, I mean, Maria negotiated, and again, if we don't like it, we can get out at May. If not, then obviously we're set in. But it is a $5 per child for the next 3 years. It's incredible.
What's really nice is they're working, again, a Wisconsin-based company with DPI. It will generate all reporting requirements for Act 20 on its own. So, taking a local company is really a good thing. Everything's coming in there, and they're just great people, to be honest. Just great people. So that is then, and then our universal screening tool, which will be at Ames Web, and implementing that. It's been, they're very much lagging on communication, getting that done. They changed the law that said you did not have to go in fall, but some districts did, and they're struggling to get Pearson is not getting everybody in. So I'm very glad with my decision, just to hold off with that. All of these tools will also talk to each other in nightly syncs in the data warehouse, so when kids are in any of our assessments, immediately it will be available the next day for intervention and teacher teams and all of that to use.
That's been my experience with Pearson. We've innovated.
Yeah,
Well, it
not
doesn't
really.
really work, but we still do anyway. It's not bad.
So we're gonna continue to do that kind of work, and I'm not gonna lie, there's a lot of work in there. So we'll be working on that, but that's exciting. And then really, this plan about the learning spaces, again, most of it came from the library plan, just based off of what has already been approved. So those are kind of the main things in the strategic plan and kind of what the work is. Do you guys have any questions on that, or?
The last piece I just would add is we did have, there was a lot of work done with those building leadership teams.
Yeah.
We did have 2 members of the strategic planning team come and talk to our entire staff. We spent about
And back to school.
back to school stuff, about 25 minutes to kind of reviewing things, going through a lot of it, the new stuff, and what we were going to be doing too as well. So that was
Who were those people that came in?
Melissa Musial and Ashley Renz was there, and Mary Awanski was ready to speak too as well. I did send it to the entire team and said who was available, and those were the ones who were able to be there too as well. Yep.
A quick question, this would be in the library piece. So Jim gets all that data and he's looking at those resources. Is there like a yearly plan to say, is part of that for him planning what we'll need in the future for this much is getting used, so we need to
Yes.
move our budget over here?
Yes.
Yeah, we do look at that every year.
Yeah, about
for
what
it is.
systems are we using, what aren't we using, what are we more of, less of, stop using stuff.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
We're paying, for example, we're paying for something that came with Eureka for math. It was used heavily this year. We required it because our kids came out of a different math program to see. And then this year we kind of left it up to the teachers. If you think you think you need the information on a kid, feel free to put it on. We're clearly getting our kids were doing so well in the transition, it might not be needed, right? So that'll be one way we track, and then, nope. I think that's where it's going anyway, but I don't want to say it's early on in the year.
I sat down with Jim and said, tell me, through our budget process, all right, what is this, and this, what do we need not, where can we shift, what is common school funds, et cetera, so. Yep.
So our second agenda item is district data dashboard. September, we always give you a little update. We can't release all the data on it, so I don't know. October is such a big meeting with Ford. I don't like to put everything in one, but so but I am going to kind of talk about the forward piece that will be changing for next month. So the biggest change was the performance level language. So we used to have below basic, basic, proficient, and advanced, and now the categories are developing, approaching, meeting, and advanced. So if you had a child at these grade levels and you got their forward report home, I did try to, on my cover letter, highlight this for parents. And, you know, I did put just if anybody is watching or has the thing, can kind of talk about, you know, you could, what do I want to say? Like, you could read this in your free time, if that's what you
Read all
want
the
to do.
details if you want.
Yes,
Yeah.
you know, reports if you're more. The most common questions we usually get are our kids that are, you know, really below basic or advanced kids, because the language here kind of denotes like they're working above grade level. I always have to remind parents, and I think this is kind of really the best understanding, is that they're only testing those grade level standards. So in essence, our hope is that we always have kids in the meeting and advanced category. They have depth of knowledge level questions that are more intense, like supposed to be higher level, and that's the difference between the meeting and advanced, right? They would say the advanced, those kids kind of got more of the problem solving type questions, the depth of knowledge questions, they did better for that, but it doesn't mean that they're functioning grade level above grade level. We certainly do have some advanced kids that are doing that kind of mathematics, but you know, that's where it is. And then with the change in levels and with the new test, because it is the first time that they tested the new standards that they pushed out in the pandemic and then the following year in math. So new standards, new cut scores, which is the standard setting process for the forward. This is probably what's getting the most public attention. We did have a staff member, our instructional specialist, Lindsay, did spend multiple days doing this, representing Merton, working on the standard setting process. You know, if you want to nerd out, you can always reach out to Lindsay and ask her how did that go. But, you know, obviously they feel like they aligned it more to what other states were doing besides what's in the past. You know, I mean, I'm going to try to leave my personal bias out of it, but for lack of a better word, it was, they did lower the standard cut scores. Our old ones were aligned to the NAEP assessment, and then they kind of took these cut scores and aligned it more to states' cut scores, other states' cut scores. So you're going to see a difference. You will see an increase in everybody's scores. So when I came to the board last October about having this be a baseline year, I'm very still saying it needs to be a baseline year. We didn't even know if they were going to change all of that, but new tests, and the other thing is a new design test too. So new standards, they designed the test and blueprint differently, and they have the standards setting changed. So we'll be learning a lot about that. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on all the new. They have released very few technical details on any of this. But you know, you're going to see that in everyone's score release along with Merton's. You know, and you're also going to see that probably reflected in the report cards. They have not said much if they are changing any of those technical ends of that. I have no idea with that. So just looking at this, and I just kind of highlight the things that we were able to update. Our first section of the dashboard is non-releasable forward data at this time, only for local, but that's going to pop in here with our things. I can't project a target, and I think even for next year, I don't know. I probably am going to give this a whole refresh once I know more, and we can talk over. I do know a refresh might be good because I heard from strategic planning as well. Ron shared with me maybe digging at some of our demographic data and putting those indicators on here. So that might be something I'll ask for your thoughts and feedback on. Do we want to track some of those other pieces? So we'll come back to that. But I guess our biggest thing that we could track is iReady. and how did our kids do. You're gonna see our math indicators, kind of where the national norm for iReady is, where our school was the first time with the data dashboard, and where we did last year. And what you see is we're continuing to grow. And you know, kind of where I said, like, you know, when I look at our math scores, that's pretty awesome. In our 2 grade levels that we highlight for the research, we didn't see any dip, which is great. We saw some kind of really big growth in 5th grade, and I'm not surprised because that's very heavy fraction work. And if kids can really have a solid understanding of that, we're gonna be ourselves in a great position.
Walked in yesterday and they were working on fractions, and Mr. Hanrahan's like, they need to know fractions.
So, you know, really pleased, and again, this is on the iReady. And then what,
Maria says, iReady didn't change their test, that's not because of changing cut point.
Correct,
That's
right.
The
The test
that's
is
the
comparable.
test.
This is comparable.
That was
across the
standards,
two
yes.
years.
Correct. Now, it's a different group of kids, right? I mean,
Year to
every
year.
year to year, this is
Yeah.
a different, this isn't a cohort group, but it was nice to see that, again, just a snapshot in time. Every year we want to be continuing.
and we put those research-based indicators, because you know, there's a lot to say, like if they're not reading by 3rd grade, if you're not close in reading and math by these grades, it really kind of sets you. So we're targeting them, because it shouldn't matter what cohort of kids there.
Yep.
We are gonna try our best to kind of improve that, so, with that. And then, you know, our own measure is how are our kids growing in their growth goals, their typical growth score in iReady, and their stretch goals, which is, you know, a lot bigger of a goal. And I put our iReady norms here, and, you know, we really wanna continue to target, making sure that we're growing, you know, all kids. I would say, you know, that was a little harder for this year in some of our reading categories. But I did kind of mark too what's new in reading that kind of maybe would have affected the score. Our kindergarten used to not take iReady. They used to do a paper and pencil, but they asked, because they liked the standards-based information they gained from math, if we could put them on, so we did. So this comparison doesn't include kindergarten. This one does. And we started kindergarten in January, so they didn't get the whole year time to grow that in those calculations. So I'm not super surprised, but even with those scenarios in math, we did some growth again, which is just a really nice sign. Our teachers did such a nice job doing good work.
So then you'd expect in the 24-25 ones that it'll have been in the kindergarten will have had a full level of
Yes.
year of development
Yeah.
before they take
Yeah.
assessment.
Yes. And I'm probably going to be changing this now K-8 because everyone's doing it. And we can come back and say too, now that we know that Ames Web is required, because that's the other thing I don't know how I want to handle. I'm very worried we're over testing our kids. And so I think we'll have a conversation maybe a little, probably November, December, January, to talk about if we do iReady 3 times a year, we're required to do Ames Web. Yes, it's shorter, 7 to 8 minutes, but it's still a day of instruction a couple times a year, especially when you're talking about our littlest students. You know, do we want to keep iReady at 3 times a year? Do we want to maybe move that to 2? Because we can't change Ames Web, because that's the law. So, but iReady was an approved diagnostic test. So it does help from the lens of that, and our teachers really like the information. We used to do Ames Web here, we went away from it because they hated the information. So it's hard for me to get rid of the things that our teachers value. So I don't know, we're still gonna get a lot of feedback and processing with them about how they feel about it, but you know, it really is time. So we'll see how January goes, because that'll be the first time they will take the Ames Web and iReady around the same time. We did drop doing running records with all students because of the double measures. Not that we won't, kids that are surprising to us or are significantly high or maybe struggling a bit noticed on that. We will still use that as a tool, but it just won't be for everyone. So yeah, any questions on that? Is there anything you think based off of our discussion you kind of wanna, that you've been thinking about or wondering or what would like to see, or did I surprise you when I said we might wanna add Ames Web on here or anything? No? Okay,
I mean, I would be interested in this discussion of what the teachers feel of the testing and the over-testing and
Yeah.
what they're seeing with the students.
okay, yeah, for sure.
Because I'm sure some kids love the testing part, some kids probably dread having to, even if it's a short
Yeah,
10 minutes.
well, I already has kind of little games built in to keep
Yeah,
kids, they're
sounds
swapping
good.
it, Abe
Right.
Swab's a little bit more,
A little dry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maria, did the state say when they were gonna release forward scores yet? I
no,
haven't seen that
they
yet.
said anticipate an October
October
timeline,
sometime, yeah.
kind of in our DAC updates, but not a formal release
Right.
date.
Yeah, and all the technical stuff hasn't been released yet.
Correct.
Either we really see the detail on the calculation and
Yeah, sometimes they release the scores without the technical guides, and you can't
behind the
even,
scenes adjustments they make. to
Yeah, I
see
mean,
what's
I don't-
going on.
We talked a little bit about that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Vark, I don't know, I call it like the little Wizard of Oz, he's kind of like, and you're like, what's behind the curtain? I do not know, they do not
Statistics that
share.
most people will not understand,
Yeah.
but,
And they don't even share, so I mean, there's only so much districts, honestly, and it's not an excuse, it's just the reality situation that we're living in. Great, so our last two agenda items today, can be very quick here, and, new teacher induction, as you know, we welcomed another wonderful crew of teachers here. Something new is, all of our hires we do not have any new to the profession teachers with the hiring. I feel a little bit closer connected because I hired the majority of these new staff members. So it kind of made new teacher induction a little different for me, and in Mary's new role, which was a good thing, especially with all the planning for our back to school and the new literacy adoption. You know, her role is to keep working with new teacher induction, so she could take on some portions for me, which I've done in the past, which is nice. So 21, that's wrong.
Yeah, that's wrong.
I don't know. No one catches that. I
Should
did. We have 14, I think.
14, that included specialists, principal, yeah, there was a bunch of, yeah.
I'll get back. I just kind of put like, mainly we kind of set mornings for the most part. Mornings kind of more district learning for everyone. And the afternoon we always call something like choose your own adventure because we know that teachers, especially experienced teachers, come from a whole bunch of different school systems and sometimes they know stuff and they don't need it and sometimes they don't. If you came from an iReady district, you don't need to come and hear Maria talk about iReady. If you are a district that used inquiry journeys and social studies, you don't have to come and find out about that. You already know it, you know how it works. So what you're gonna basically notice that we try to do every time is choose your own adventure. So the first day is very more structural. I kind of call that first day a Ron show because he goes through HR stuff, part is responsible.
All operational.
Manage, benefits, buildings and grounds, business, how do you put in POs, a lot on our technology. Mary runs something like, how does our technology work here? If you're not used to hover cams, things, most people really like that because they can come and see it in their spaces and rooms and know how to have it work. But the second day, I just want to really give a shout out to a chunk of our regular staff comes back to school here to help induct their partners. And we try to give them these dates if we know the openings. So, we knew we were losing our music teacher over here at the primary. And if you haven't met Sarah Ford, our new one, please just even fly by her room. They'll say everything.
Her little fairy house was adorable.
But what you're gonna see, then Janice could put on her calendar and come and work with her for half a day on like music things. So, and we did that again in speech and language, and Mary could do some inducting in makerspace and do overviews, and Lori does some information. And again, like a ton of people with that. I did share the survey results with you. We have very well rated with many positive comments. The whole survey responses are like here. But we always want to be better. So actually you could look at this agenda and we look at survey data and we put right in there what we want to get better at for next year. So some things that I'll just say is that, both these last 2 years we've our staff has had a hard time getting in the training into Skyward or into some of our platforms. And that's because we can't get them in until they turn in some paperwork. And so it continues to be a problem. So one thing we're thinking about is how, when we're hiring, do we actually give them a deadline of like, if you know in January, we want that like August 1st or whatever we say, or sign a tech agreement right now so we can get you your email address. Like, there are things that we can continue to improve, so we're really looking at that. You know, digital tech lists, you know, that was just a comment too, like, we went through a lot of things, and if we have a very extensive onboarding website, and they're like, maybe if you just put some of the lists that you run through, because we give Jim Binney a list, cover this in your technology principles, this is what we want you to cover. You know, I would say we continue to have a few comments about, you know, Bob didn't know the primary to answer some of the questions. So, you know, and that's been a thing, because honestly, all my 3 years here, like going into my 4th now, 3 out of those 4 in the onboarding, we've had a new administrator here. So it's really hard to kind of get going on some of those items, and the feedback is, I wish I would have known a little bit more about this or that, that's in their section, but you don't know what you don't know. And also, I do a iReady overview. This was in a teacher comments, but our instructional specialists sit through this, and they said, Maria, we think you need to put a little bit more in there of like, how do they access it? How does it actually get scheduled and worked in their buildings? A little bit more logistics. I overview what it is, how their scores work. So, you know, I take feedback from the team all the time. And then, you know, the STAR is that onboarding website. We show them that in day 2, and they're like, why are you keeping that? Like, show that day 1 where all this stuff is located. So, you know, the message I want to send is, we've had great reviews, but we know we can continue to get better. Onboarding is one of the most important things. It sets the stage if they're happy. We spend a lot of time, you know, having lunch with them, bringing something in, spend time with some swag and some welcoming things and fun activities, and it makes a difference. You know, I've had a couple of our veteran teachers just in the hallway saying, like, this is my 3rd district, and like I've been at good districts, and you guys like did better. I was like, well, my goal is to do it better. Like,
I want to think Justin and I had a conversation last week, and he's just like, you know, how are the new teachers doing? But he mentioned, hey, how about doing a 30-day touch point? I was like, okay, haven't done that before in the past. Yesterday reached out, I think I've got 4 people already scheduled for all of our new ones, whether it's administrators, support staff, or teachers. So thanks, Justin, for that nudge and that idea. But again, the onboarding process is the most important thing we can do, making sure they're feeling good, supported, what more can they know, and how can we help. So
I was wondering about, so 30-day touch point, this is when we have a big group of people who have worked in other districts, so for things like, oh, my orientation over here, do we ask, or could we be asking, the first 6 months or first year, like, where are the pain points here that you didn't experience in other districts? That in part because we don't get to see everybody else's innovations.
Yeah.
We hear about it in conferences and things. But for instance, somebody says, you know, we used this software too, and we moved to this one for this reason.
so
Then you're also honoring their expertise in those areas. You're not saying we will do those things, but it's for our learning.
So we do a survey at the end of, we actually end the year with a little celebration and party with them, and we do throw out a survey at that time asking for those type of things.
Okay.
So, you know, it hasn't pinpointed these induction programs. To be honest, some of our comments have just really been relating to teaming and the turnover, right? Like, what's hard is when we turn over people, getting those teams and having to renorm and redo all of that, like, that's been a common theme in those.
And I wasn't really specific to the orientation, just.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
I had this, I was handling this load, you use this software, I have experience with this, which doesn't necessarily mean to have to be that software, but how do we overcome this problem that we know we're experiencing if someone else says, oh, by the way, if we go that way.
And that's
There's
good
another
because our
option.
teacher perception survey goes out really early, right? So like for our new staff, I know a lot of times, like last year, they'd be like, I can't comment, like I haven't been here long enough, like to determine that. So this last agenda item is really, is there anything else on teacher induction just from our program?
Oh, just the survey, making sure we, like you said, build it into.
Oh, yeah, so this summer academy survey. Last year I got 6 responses, this year none.
Yeah.
And I did it different because I didn't get a lot. I put it
Yeah.
in 2 different, and then my instructional specialists, we talked about it, like, that means we didn't fill it out, that's not good.
We know no one did.
Yeah, make it like an exit right before.
But
you
I
Well,
do
that's
think
what
like,
we're gonna be doing.
right, like, I gave it 2 years of kind of like, I can send it out in separate emails,
Yeah.
I can sync it in addendums, now I'm doing our own like internal some more, cause I got groovy with it last year. Put it in places, it just didn't go, and it's important for us, so that's
You do
why.
a lot
I
of
think-
work, you wanna know if it's.
Yes.
Exactly.
working, right?
Yeah, and,
So do you think your numbers are down because it's say, I'm gonna send this out and fill it out on your own time?
I think so, or,
It's like, what-
I mean, let's be honest, the beginning of the year for teachers is very, very
Yeah,
busy.
you get busy.
But we want it at the time because it's fresh.
Right.
Like, if you wait like, if I sent it out now, they'll be like, what? Like, what do we even talk about? Like,
So Justin, were you suggesting that they do it at the end of the day?
I would.
You make the-
yeah, that's
That's
what I
what- yeah,
had, in the
And
memo.
that's what we do with our new teachers, that's why you make sure there's 10 of them, 10 because you know before you leave, you had to do this.
Yeah.
And I
We
think
went
that's.
from student evaluations for the students when you used to hand them out in the
Yes.
classes. Now that you send it out, we went from 80% people taking it to 6.
Yeah,
Right.
It's just because it's on my own time and I don't
Yeah.
have, I'll get to it later and then.
so I am, we're just gonna have to build it into our tip planning and have it at a time they meet the room. The hardest part is like that last day, cause we give them a full professional day for that open house. So, that's a professional learning day, that would be a great time to do it. That's when last year I put it there, I sent it specifically on that day's agenda with that day's separate link, thinking like, I don't always have parents, I can hop in and do it there. I just have to, so I won't get feedback on that day if I do it built in, but that's okay. I think we can get more than what we're getting now, obviously.
Yeah.
Well, we build it in before they leave or something.
Yeah. So, but I like to be transparent about everything, because, we'll keep working. I know future agenda items, we will have the, public release of the spring report card data. We're anticipating that, based off of the timing of when our meeting usually is. In that report, I try to do comparables, to other districts. So it takes a little time to put it together. I say that because please understand, if it comes out like on a Friday and our meeting's on that Monday, I'll do my best, but to get comparables done, but I literally have to go into Wise Dash, and look at every school district for every grade level and every content area that we might, it's just not hard, it's fun for me, I love it, but it takes a little time.
There's no easy way to pull it.
No, I wish. But that will be available, and I'm also doing a little different format this year, just so you know. So I would really like some feedback. We're gonna, instead of tables and numbers, I'm doing graphs. But again, it's really hard to look at trend data. So I'm gonna put it up there, but we've gotta remember everything that changed this year. And you guys can tell me, maybe you wanna say like, stop giving me past years, let's just start fresh this year. I'm open to ideas, I am doing it this year, and then I will update the district dashboard for all of that, so we'll dive in. And then I think, Justin, you wanted to talk a little bit about gifted and talented. Do you want to?
Just how it all plays into, the strategic plan and
Oh, okay.
meeting all students' needs and stuff like that.
Do you want to know like anything about how kids are identified, our process, our?
Feedback I hear is people don't know what our offerings are in the district.
Okay,
what we
so you're
do,
more talking about programming.
I think we can start with that, like a general overview with where families can go to understand what we do, essentially, right?
And with Mary's position, we have some new opportunities
Mhm.
and things that we might
For
not have
sure.
had procedures
Yeah.
for in the past.
Yeah, I mean, she's already saying like, because she had such a teaching load, she was really stuck with when certain things can happen,
Yeah.
both with working with new teachers. So now that like the teaching load's gone, it really does open up
I mean,
things.
I'm not gonna assume, but I'm gonna assume that our scores are gonna improve with
Yeah.
the new cut scores in our district.
Mhm.
And we have a lot more kids in this category that they are qualifying as advanced, and I understand, right?
Yeah,
You know, we should be able to have a program that's very detailed and outlined of, hey, how we can meet the needs of those students to make sure we keep moving them forward, right?
yeah. I might have to follow up a little with
Yeah,
you,
no worries.
Justin, because I
Yeah.
wanna make sure I
Yeah.
get you, because that's why I asked about identification, because forward isn't really used much for identification.
Sure.
You go to nationally normed tests, and I don't see that like influencing like too much about identification. I think there, you know, we in multi-level system of support, we have different levels,
Mhm.
just like we do from high intensive things, on most things, acceleration for those.
I guess maybe I'll phrase it this way.
Yeah.
I think sometimes gifted and talented, just that term doesn't allow enough students to be exposed to additional support at a higher level. Does that make sense? 'Cause-
I'm hearing you maybe more about kind of like, what are some of our programming options that we do for kids in all
That
of
would be-
that
that would be
five
great. That would be a
identified
great start.
areas?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, thank you, because
Yeah,
that
that'd be a
helps
great
me
start.
then, so
Yeah.
we can kind of come and you guys can
Yep.
find out a little bit about that. You know, absolutely.
Perfect, thank you.
And when you're doing back on the data, you said you're gonna do graphs this time?
Yeah.
Since your graphs are all based on the tables.
Okay, all right. Thanks, Justin.
Yeah, the
Thanks.
table. Right.
Oh, yeah, we're
Right,
working on
Right,
that.
because I do agree, the graph is visual, I was just teaching last night, visually easier to
Yes.
take in more data.
Mhm.
To be able to see then what's behind it,
Mhm.
then if you
Yes,
have that anyway, if you could link to it, then somebody could see this and go,
yeah, that's
I wanna know what's
exactly what
behind
we're
it.
working on
Okay.
for that. You know, I kind of picked up and did what Ron was presenting to the board. I thought that was typical for here, you know, our little tables and
Yeah.
spreadsheets, and I thought, oh, people are used to looking at that here, but then I think actually your husband sparked me to do that, because he came to that meeting
He made graphs.
with
Yes.
graphs, and he shared them with me, and I'm like, yes, that's, you know, and I did a lot of graphing, but we had a process in a data warehouse that graphed for me, but we're trying to get a little something with that, because I would have to create this anyway, because our data warehouse isn't gonna put other districts' information on it, right? And that's basically what we're trying to do, give comparable data out.
So Maria, looking at our agenda for October, our board meeting is around the 28th. I think probably maybe the week before, like October 21st week, I can try to schedule something with the team.
Let me
Or what
kind
do
of
you
look
think?
at when the public release
Okay.
was. I know it was very close to pass. Well, maybe I had a week or two. Can I circle back with
Sure.
that? Because I want
Sure.
to kind of know when they released, if I can find when they
Yeah.
normally release that.
And-
Because that meeting is not going to be we need to have that information to have this meeting.
Correct, yeah, we do, we certainly do.
Okay.
So.
Are we not
do you-
doing it before anymore?
Well, we can try before the meeting if we'd like to, or again, how much time do you think you need for
Are we
your?
talking, so in October,
Yeah.
which day?
Well, I'll have to work with Justin as well, but
No, I
how
was-
much time?
Before
I'm
the
saying
board
before-
meeting.
before- what day is the board meeting?
28th.
It's the 28th.
Again, we push it a little later due to budget stuff.
The, let's see, no, that's not supposed to do that. I'm doing faculty development for the nursing staff, so I won't get here at 6.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll be looking at the week before, then again, so you and I can work on a time. How much time do you think we're gonna need to have a conversation about gifted and talented, updating and releasing our scores?
So
Hour
if you have
15?
if you have the score release, that's usually a much bigger part of the conversation.
It is, it's gonna be new numbers, it's gonna be, I mean, we've talked in the majority about what it means right now.
What I'm wondering is if it's hard to schedule, should we meet the subcommittee meet twice that time? Like, we get the scores and then have.
We can have,
Another
in a
No,
second.
I mean, I
I
think
don't
we,
know.
I
I think we can put them together.
I do, I think
Yeah.
like, I mean, because really the update district dashboard is just gonna have the numbers on, it's
Yeah.
not gonna be a huge conversation, I think mostly comparable, and then, you know, some of, for gifted and talented, I'm hearing some kinda I'm not sure how I'm wording it, but kind of like more enrichment type things. What
Yeah.
do we, how do we?
That's what I.
And I think if we,
check, but
Yeah.
I'm thinking an hour, if we spent a half hour reviewing the data and giving a half hour conversation, I think an hour would be plenty for this. Would you believe that, Maria?
I do.
Because the data is what it is, we can review it, we're not gonna have a lot of time to get digging involved, so I think an hour.
I mean, I can't answer too many questions on it. Do you know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah.
Probably.
It is what it is, they tell us what it is.
You know what I'm saying? I don't, it's not like I'm gonna be an expert at, you know, some of the NSAT questions that I might have been able to
Mhm.
answer in the future.
Yeah.
Depending on when that stuff comes available.
Okay.
Just want to make sure we have.
Well, I'll reach out, well, it'll be an hour and I'll reach out to both Rebecca, I'll check our calendars and Rebecca and Justin's and we'll put something on the calendar towards the end of the month.
That week, the 23rd, I'm not available.
Oh, that
Before-
Wednesday?
Yep.
Just
As
Wednesday?
you're looking. Yep.
Okay, so the reason, that will be important probably, so we'll probably,
24th is a PD day, so you'll be booked up.
well, she can't do anything, she said that whole week, right?
No,
Just
just
Wednesday.
October 23rd.
Oh, just October,
Just October
okay.
23rd, at least that's what I heard, October 23rd.
Well, I mean,
It's Tessa's 16th birthday that day. That's the
Oh.
only day she's not at Arrowhead for like all day, so
Yeah.
that's the day. I can see her in the morning. but I
Okay.
usually can't see
Sure.
her.
yeah.
No problem, we can work around that.
Yeah, and I think, you know, again, I'll look kind of when the release, I wanna say it was like October 15th.
It was in the middle of the
like-
month.
It was, I mean, it
Yeah.
always was a little bit of a, for me to get it for this, but,
Typically, they try to align it with the final state aid numbers, seems
Oh,
like,
yeah.
because then it gets mixed in with that. That's what I recall. My side of the house, remember.
your budget side,
I
that's
could
not as
do
important.
any morning, and I also have some a little flexibility in the afternoon, those dates right now.
Do you think morning works better for you and Justin than,
I don't love Friday mornings because I teach till
Yeah.
10 p.m. on Thursday nights,
Yeah.
but it's fine. That's the, in general scheduling, I think it's, Tobias apparently has gotten himself ready for school, so that's good.
So, we'll figure it
I
out,
think
we'll get it
usually
worked
so.
out, yeah.
okay.
All right, I think we're good.
All right.
Okay.
All right, thanks a lot.
All right, thanks, everybody.